Hi, this is Angela. Today's a cup of tea. As I progress on the spiritual journey, I find I become more and more adventurous. Actually, more and more open to new and exciting and different experiences. And I've more and more recently have had people note to me in conversation like, "You are just such a daredevil," or "Nothing phases you," or "You'll do anything." And I'm like, I've gotten to the point where I really truly am getting there. That I'm almost there. That I will try almost anything, because part of it is not that I've always been this way, because I have had a penchant for trying different and unusual things, but I did have fears. I'd had some pretty deep ones, and I used to not do certain things because I was afraid of them. But I've gotten to the point in my life where I will try just about anything. And what's interesting about that is, as I process through and say, "Oh, well, that'd be something." If something is something pulling to me for an experience, I think, excuse me, I think that it's something for me to try. And if I have fears about it or something that holds me up, all I do is go and clear myself of them, and I find out why I have those fears, and then I release them. So the more we clear ourselves out, and somebody asked me recently too, like, "Well, what do you mean when you talk about clearing and clearing yourselves out?" Well, it's clearing out, it's pulling out these fears, our beliefs that have are self-limiting thoughts, words, and actions. Our fears, our anxieties, our regrets, our rejections, resentments, and anger that we have built up about certain things that prevent us from enjoying something in the highest and best way, because of those pre-existing conditions, those pre-existing mental conditions of the ego. And that's what they are, is mental conditions, because how much have we built up anxiety on stuff? How many times have you really truly had such anxiety about something, and then you experienced it and it wasn't so bad at all? But then how many times have you also built up so much anxiety that you've created a terrible situation? That happens a lot more than people believe it does. It's funny. I have always had this love-hate relationship with roller coasters. When I was a kid, I would like them. I loved them, but I would always have this projection. I really was super type A. So for anybody who knows me now and didn't know me before, they think, well, yeah, I'm such a daredevil. But people who've known me over the years, it's sort of really interesting. Even my kids are like, wow, you just have changed dramatically. But anyway, so roller coasters. I used to have this love-hate thing with them, and I would want to go on them, and I would love the thrill, but it was that whole anxiety that would project itself in my mind, of like, oh, well, what have I seen in the movies where something like this has happened, where somebody's fallen out, or da 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 da. Guess what happened? I did that so much. When I was like 18 years old, I went to an amusement park and got on a roller coaster that went upside down, had a loop-de-loop thing. And I was terrified, but I did it anyway. Got in the chair, they have the things over your head. And as we start to pull away, I realized that thing over my head never locked. Never locked. Closed. It was too late. We already started moving. And I remember sitting next to the person that I was with, and wrapping my arms around the head thing that they had that was locked in, and wrapping my other arm around the thing on the side to hold me in the the car for the roller coaster. How crazy is that? Okay. Another time, I think this has happened 3 times now. Another time I got stuck up at the top of a roller coaster for like a good half hour. The top, like at the very top, probably couldn't have been a highest point that that couldn't have been a higher point than where I was. And then the third time, I actually got stuck at the top and had to get out and crawl and go down the emergency stairs. 3 times in my life. And I still go on roller coasters. I still love them. But you know what? What's really funny is, after I started doing this work, after I really started working on releasing my fears, releasing my anxieties, releasing my type A projections of what could happen, of all the bazillion things that could happen, and then creating it for myself, then guess what happened? Whenever I went on a roller coaster, nothing happened. It was fine. Absolutely fine. I figured, what? I had my 3 turns of whatever. But Yeah, and a lot of people say, oh, well, I wouldn't have gone on again after that first time that happened. Yeah, well, I guess I'm stubborn that way. But anyway, what's key is to release those fears, anxieties, and regrets, rejections, resentments, and anger. Because once we do that, then we don't have all that stuff playing scripts in our head, running scripts in our head on what could go wrong. And once you release that, it's a whole lot easier. What is one big script that we all have with these fears that we have? Why don't we do certain things like that? Because we're afraid of dying. There's a big fear of death that many of us have embedded in. I have worked a lot on that, and it doesn't faze me in the least anymore. What happens many times with people is that when they have fears that have to do with death, which is a lot of why you have fears of claustrophobia, falling off a cliff or falling out of something or whatever, is because you question. That there's a part of you that actually questions, number one, what happens when we die. Number two, that we might actually be just done after we die. Number three, that we might get judged or get in trouble or whatever when we die. And number four is that it would be untimely. We have it all planned out. When we're done with the lessons that we choose in this lifetime, we are done. And you can walk out in the street and get hit by a bus, or you can get hit in the head by something falling out of an airplane in the sky, or die from a freak accident in your bathtub. It can happen. So if you truly embrace the idea that we are eternal divine beings and we are born again and again, and even after we're done being born here, that we go into other existences, we go into other levels of, we focus in other levels of consciousness, then it's funny how you shift in your perception of whether or not you're afraid of something of something happening. I just, like I said, I found that the more I have embraced that, the more I realize, okay, well, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's gonna, if it's ready, if it's time for it to happen, it's gonna happen, whether I'm here or cliff diving someplace, right? And some people say, well, yeah, but why pose the temptation or something funny like that? I want to have a good time. I've had a lot of lifetimes. I understand that I've had a lot of lifetimes. I've remembered a lot of them, and I've had a lot of angst. I've had a lot of pain and anguish, and I'm done with it. I'm ready to go back to all the glory of being divine, of all the glory of remembering of my divinity, and having so much fun with it. And the more and more I release, the more of these fears, anxieties, regrets, rejections, resentments, all that stuff that I release, the more I can embrace life, the more I have a magnificent time, and the more I really feel as if I really am on that journey to my personal legend. So that's something for you to consider this week. I want you to look at something that you are really afraid of and start saying, well, why am I afraid of it? Why am I afraid of it? And start working on the process of how to release that, how to release that fear, how to look at it straight in the face, and maybe even try a couple of things that might help you get past that fear. And part of it, again, is it's a whole bunch of things. It's the whole death thing. It's the sometimes it's just clearing out instances from like a past life. I had that happen with me on foot bridges and rope bridges. Isn't that funny? It's like it's down on a cliff like a couple miles in the air, and it didn't faze me. But if I if I got to a rope bridge or something that was 10 feet off the ground, it would freeze me up and I wouldn't be able to get on it. So found out that was another life thing where I died in the Swiss Alps that way, falling through a rope bridge. But it was, but anyway, so if you look at why, and sometimes it is a past life, sometimes it is something that traumatized you when you were little. And then you look at the whole fear of death, the whole perception of death, and then you look at how to rid yourself of that. And maybe try little things in baby steps to help you move forward and towards being able to release that altogether, and trying stuff and finding out that you really might enjoy doing what you feared beforehand. So that's your homework for this week. Here's your clearing. We're going to do a clearing on death. And there's a whole lot of complexity to our feelings on death. So this is a really basic one, but it'll get you started. So would you like all the following? Without trauma, drama, or illness, without creating or recreating a situation for illustration or experience, and all with ease, grace, balance, harmony, joy, fun, excitement, adventure, love, and bliss. Would you like for it to be for all versions of you, all times, all places, into the ever-expanding universe to infinity and beyond? Would you also like for it to, any information to come in via instantaneous and comprehensive download with fully conscious understanding in the moment and version of you from which it is requested? And would you also like to replace any of the Creator's truths and understandings, perspectives, definitions that come in from these clearings? Would you like Creator's version to replace your version so that yours and Creator's are aligned for divine alignment? And that being said, let's move forward into that. Would you like to have Creator bring forward all of the experiences in your existence that have caused you to fear dying and fear death? And to get Creator's truth and teachings about that and why that was the case, how it served you to have those experiences and lessons, and what the perception of those situations were versus what the truth is of what those situations were. To get conscious knowledge of all that, to pull all beliefs related to, I will suffer when I die, death is painful, death is bad, death is final. I can die an untimely death, or I can die a death that was not planned. If I do things that I'm afraid of, I could die doing them. Or the reason I'm afraid of doing things is certain things that I could die doing them. Pull anything related to that. Pull all fears, anxieties, regrets, rejections, resentments, and anger that are related to those beliefs. Pull all energy memory of that from the cellular level, as well as all self-limiting thoughts, words, and actions related to that from the cellular level. Transform them to Creator's light, send them back to Creator. Close those receptors, open new ones. Saturate the cells with the highest vibration of Creator's unconditional love. And download the beliefs, I am divine. I am eternal. Transitioning from one life to the next, or transitioning out of this life, is planned. It is going to happen when I am done with my lessons in this life. Get all Creator's truth and understandings on that, all teachings about that. And to say, I release my fears about dying. I am without fear of dying. And know the feelings of that. Get Creators to give you the download of how that feels and how to know how that feels and moving forward without fear of dying and with full acceptance. And to also know that you're worthy, deserving, and able to, that it's possible, allowed, okay, and safe to, that you're ready, willing, and able to, and that you have that in your life right now. And then write it all off as complete in the Akashic records. Heal, resolve, and clear the timelines in all directions to infinity with the violet and platinum flame. And provide it to any and all ancestors and descendants as they so choose to accept. And if you would like that, take a deep breath, close your eyes, be open to receive, and say, yes, transition. And that's it. Have a great one. We'll talk to you later in the week. This is Angela with today's Cup of Tea.